Chapter 1. The Forgotten Walls. The first thing you notice about the ruins is not their size, nor their age, but the symbols etched deep into their stone. They stand out immediately, as if they were never meant to fade. Patterns carved with impossible precision, circles that connect seamlessly into spirals, lines that intersect at perfect angles, forming shapes too exact to be chance. These marks are not decoration. They are a language. The mystery begins with the fact that no one has ever been able to translate them. Scholars describe them as ancient scripts. Historians call them ceremonial. Yet when placed beside any known writing system, they resist every comparison. They are neither letters nor numbers, neither maps nor simple art. They occupy a space outside of all categories, a puzzle that will not bend to simple answers. Some of the carvings look almost mathematical, as though they encode sequences or patterns beyond human speech. Others take on the appearance of constellations, as if meant to reflect the sky rather than the earth. And still others seem designed to shift in meaning depending on how light strikes the stone, revealing forms that change with every angle. This strangeness is what draws so many to them, because they do not belong solely to the past. They feel alive in the present. The symbols suggest intention, intelligence, and purpose, yet the tools of their creation remain unknown. No chisels could produce such fluid cuts. No hand could hold the precision of these curves. Each line is flawless, as though inscribed in a single movement with a technology that does not match the era of the ruins. If they were truly messages, then who were they meant for? If they were truly warnings, then what were they warning against? And if they were records, then what kind of story would be carved in a language no one has ever spoken? These questions press against every attempt to understand them, creating a sense that the ruins are not simply structures but archives of something greater. To stand before them is to stand before a boundary, one that separates human history from something older, something that does not fit neatly into the timeline we know. The walls rise around you like a canvas of unanswered questions, and the carvings feel less like markings and more like voices trapped in stone. Silent, yes, but insistent. They do not ask for belief. They demand interpretation. Chapter 2. Messages in the Stone. The carvings demand attention from the moment your eyes fall upon them. They are not random scratches left by time or human folly. Each line, curve, and dot is placed with intention, as if a message has been folded into the very structure of the walls. The deeper you examine them, the more their purpose becomes clear. They are communication in its purest form, a record of knowledge, a code that refuses to yield its secrets easily. Some sequences are immediately arresting. Spirals curl beside triangles, circles intersect with lines of dots, arcs extend toward the horizon of the wall. At first glance, it is easy to assume these patterns are decorative, the work of hands attempting artistry, but repetition across multiple sites tells another story. Stones miles apart bear the same markings, crafted with the same precision, a shared lexicon appearing, where cultural exchange would seem impossible. These patterns speak of knowledge traveling faster than empires, crossing deserts, rivers, and mountains without leaving footprints. Every symbol is measured, precise. The spacing is deliberate, the depth uniform. The lines are cut with a precision that defies the tools known to have existed when the ruins were built. It is as though the carvers were following instructions, or copying something already perfected. Some historians call this the language of the ancients. Some call it a mystery that may never be understood. Closer inspection reveals that certain symbols repeat within the same wall, forming sequences almost like sentences. One spiral beside a triangle may indicate the start of a concept, followed by a line of dots that might represent steps or units of time. In other sections, parallel lines appear alongside arcs, forming diagrams that seem to map out forces, angles, or even movement. To interpret these markings is to enter a world where geometry becomes grammar, where circles and lines are as expressive as letters or words. The notion that the symbols could be instructions rather than stories or decoration unsettles conventional historians. How could ancient civilizations using only stone tools preserve knowledge beyond their comprehension? Could it be that they were not the authors at all, but scribes recording what was given to them? If so, who provided this knowledge, and why was it left behind in such a cryptic form? Beyond the patterns themselves, there is something haunting in the arrangement of the symbols. Certain carvings align with natural features of the landscape, pointing toward horizons where the sun rises or sets on specific days, or where the shadows of cliffs fall in perfect lines. Others are positioned to catch the light at precise angles, illuminating hidden sections as if revealing secrets only to those who observe carefully. The ruins themselves become a kind of living manuscript, one that interacts with the world around it and changes with time, light, and season. Across continents, scholars have noticed striking similarities in these symbols. Circles carved in stone in the deserts of one land mirror, spirals etched in mountains across seas. Triangles repeat in deserts, jungles, and plains, forming lines that align with celestial bodies in ways that cannot be easily explained. This universality suggests a language that transcends human culture, perhaps even human understanding. Could it be that these messages were not meant for one civilization but for all who could recognize the signs? Some researchers have attempted to decode the patterns mathematically. They have found sequences resembling prime numbers, Fibonacci spirals, and ratios that mirror the proportions of natural structures from crystals to galaxies. Whether these correlations are intentional or coincidental remains hotly debated. Yet the fact that these same ratios appear repeatedly across unrelated sites is difficult to ignore. There is a rhythm to the symbols, a pulse, as though the walls themselves are tuned to a cosmic scale. The most unsettling aspect is the suggestion that the symbols might convey knowledge we are not yet ready to understand. They hint at concepts of energy, motion, and alignment that feel more like science than myth. Diagrams suggest gravitational lines, angles of force, and principles that seem centuries ahead of the technological capacity of the civilizations that carved them. These walls may have been repositories, archives of wisdom intended to survive the rise and fall of empires, waiting for those who could read them correctly. Some of the carvings also include figures, humans, half-human forms, and shapes that defy categorization. These guardians of the knowledge stand beside the symbols as though to enforce their importance. Sometimes they are depicted holding tools, instruments, or objects that are difficult to identify. Their eyes, deeply carved, seem to watch observers centuries later, as if their purpose was to remind anyone who dared to examine the symbols that they are not merely onlookers but participants in a story older than memory. Even the placement of these figures is deliberate. They are rarely alone. Often, a symbol will lead the eye to a figure, which then leads the observer to another set of symbols, creating a narrative path that unfolds across the stones. Following this path feels like deciphering a silent story, a sequence of events, or instructions left behind for someone who might come after. The effect is immersive and hypnotic, drawing the mind deeper into the patterns, compelling attention and contemplation. There is a tactile sensation when tracing the grooves of these carvings. Smooth yet cold, they seem almost alive under the fingers. It is a sensation that resonates more in the mind than the skin, as if the carvings are whispering, urging, inviting understanding. Observers often report a sense of connection, an intuition that the knowledge encoded here is meant not only to be studied but to be internalized, absorbed, as though the symbols themselves contain consciousness. The symbols seem to operate on multiple levels simultaneously. They are at once mathematical, artistic, symbolic, and perhaps even spiritual. They encode information, but they also evoke emotion, awe, and sometimes fear. The carvings demand not just observation but reflection. They are not content to be passive relics of the past. They insist on interaction. And yet, the symbols resist final interpretation. Every theory opens more questions. Are they instructions for rituals or blueprints for structures unknown to history? Are they mathematical codes or messages meant to communicate with something beyond the earth? Perhaps they are all of these things at once, layered intentionally to test patience, intellect, and imagination. The walls themselves become a record of human curiosity, meeting the inexplicable. The deeper one studies them, the more intricate the patterns become. Some researchers spend lifetimes tracing lines across the stone, only to discover new shapes that were previously invisible. The carvings reveal themselves gradually, a slow unveiling that mirrors the way time has eroded the stone itself. Knowledge here is not given freely. It is earned, pieced together by careful observation, intuition, and imagination. Each set of symbols is part of a larger whole. Like chapters in an unread book, they are scattered across landscapes, deserts, valleys, and mountains. Only by connecting them can a faint outline of understanding emerge. The scope is vast, beyond the imagination of any single civilization, hinting at intelligence and design beyond human capability. It is impossible not to feel that these markings were created with foresight. They seem to anticipate those who would come after, ensuring that even as empires crumbled, even as knowledge was lost, the symbols would endure. They carry the weight of instruction, warning, guidance, and perhaps invitation. The carvings are not simply etched in stone. They are etched in time. They remain patient, awaiting discovery, prepared to reveal secrets slowly and carefully to those who can perceive them. They are alive in their persistence, in the meticulous design, in the way they capture the mind and refuse to relinquish it. This is the essence of their message. The stones are silent, but the language is persistent. They demand attention, contemplation, and curiosity. They ask not for belief, but for observation. The moment you realize that, the walls begin to speak. The mystery of the symbols is not just in their form, but in their purpose. Each mark, curve, and line is a testament to a knowledge older and stranger than any single culture. They are remnants of a communication that transcends human memory, leaving a question that cannot be ignored. Who left these messages, and why? Chapter 3. The Language of the Sky. The moment you step away from the walls and look up, the sky becomes impossible to ignore. It stretches above in a vast dome of darkness sprinkled with light, each star a point in a network older than any ruin on Earth. The symbols etched in stone seem to echo patterns above, spirals reflecting distant galaxies, lines tracing the paths of planets, triangles aligning with the angles of constellations. There is a rhythm to the night sky that mirrors the carvings. The same spirals, circles, and angles repeat overhead, though scaled infinitely larger. Observers have noted that many ruins with symbols are positioned so that certain marks align with celestial events. At dawn or dusk, sunlight will fall precisely along carved grooves, illuminating hidden elements that remain invisible in other lighting. Shadows stretch and converge along the stone, tracing patterns that point to the positions of stars and planets at key moments in the year. It is impossible to dismiss the thought that these markings were meant to connect Earth and sky. They are not just art, they are coordinates, maps, and perhaps even calendars. Some sequences correspond to the rise of particular stars over the horizon, while others echo the trajectory of planets across the heavens. It is as though the symbols are an interface, a bridge between the terrestrial and the cosmic, a language designed to be read both on Earth and among the stars. The precision required to encode such knowledge into stone is staggering. It implies understanding of astronomy far beyond what historians attribute to the civilizations that built the ruins. The marks are not approximations. They align with mathematical exactness, reflecting angles and distances with a sophistication that challenges assumptions about ancient capabilities. The more one studies, the more it becomes clear that the symbols were crafted with purpose, carefully tuned to celestial mechanics. Some carvings appear to correspond with equinoxes and solstices. Triangles point to horizons where the sun rises or sets at key times of the year. Spirals mark the movement of the moon or phases of Venus. These alignments are not coincidental. The ruins were deliberately placed in locations where natural events could interact with carved symbols, transforming walls into instruments of observation and measurement. Beyond the practical, there is a sense of communication. The heavens themselves are written into the stones. Some patterns suggest messages that transcend numbers or time. Constellations reflected in carvings mirror formations that existed not only in the present sky, but perhaps also in ancient epochs, preserved as if the symbols were keeping a record of cosmic memory. Observers often report a sensation that the ruins are speaking, guiding attention from the Earth to the stars and back again. It is tempting to wonder who designed this interface. Were the builders acting on their own insight, or were they instructed? Could they have understood the cosmos so precisely without guidance, or did they record knowledge imparted by someone beyond their experience? The consistency of symbols across continents suggests a single source of knowledge, an intelligence capable of spanning cultures, distances, and generations. The carvings also hint at patterns invisible to the naked eye. Some researchers have mapped the sequences against celestial coordinates, discovering that lines and shapes correspond to star clusters, planetary orbits, and even angles of light bending at certain times of the year. The ruins are not only tools for observation, they are archives, preserving information about the cosmos in a language that remains unreadable to most. The connection extends beyond visible stars. Certain symbols seem to encode cycles, repetitions, and phenomena that suggest awareness of gravitational forces, eclipses, and other subtle celestial events. The walls themselves become instruments, capable of marking time, predicting events, or even recording anomalies in the night sky. They are not inert stone. They are observatories, libraries, and perhaps even devices of interaction between the human and the cosmic. The experience of standing among these symbols under the night sky is unlike any other. Each step along the walls feels guided by the carvings themselves. The eyes follow lines toward horizons, spirals direct attention to celestial points, and angles pull the gaze upward. It is an interaction that feels intentional, as though the builders anticipated that observers would look beyond the stone to the vast universe above. In certain ruins, carvings are repeated at multiple heights and orientations, allowing observation from different positions. From one vantage, a sequence may align with the rising sun. From another, the same symbols may frame a constellation. The walls become instruments of perspective, guiding the observer to see the same pattern in multiple dimensions. The language of the sky is not static. It is alive in observation, changing depending on the viewer's position and the time of day or year. Some patterns even suggest interaction with movement and time. Spirals that twist across walls may encode rotation, orbits, and cycles. Lines that intersect precisely might correspond to conjunctions of planets or stars. Dots and circles form diagrams that suggest gravitational relationships or orbital patterns. The symbols are encoded knowledge, a blueprint of the cosmos rendered in stone. It is impossible not to feel a sense of awe, even unease. The message is clear. The builders understood more than we often assume. Their work bridges earth and sky, carving knowledge into permanence while inviting interpretation by future generations. There is intelligence, foresight, and intention here that transcends simple observation. Some believe the symbols were a form of communication, intended for others beings who could interpret the language naturally. Others suggest they were meant to guide humanity toward understanding, leaving breadcrumbs of cosmic knowledge for those patient enough to follow. Whatever the purpose, the connection between the carvings and the sky is undeniable. As night deepens, the stars appear brighter, and the carvings catch the light of the moon. Shadows deepen and shift along the grooves, bringing previously hidden details into view. The walls themselves seem to respond to the cosmos, highlighting shapes that mirror patterns above. It is a choreography between stone and sky, past and present, knowledge and observer. Each site reveals more with careful study. Observers have noticed repetitions and correlations that span continents, suggesting a knowledge so extensive it could not have been local. Some shapes correspond to points on a global grid of ancient sites, hinting at a network of knowledge encoded across Earth itself. The sky and the stones form a dialogue that has persisted for millennia, waiting for the right mind to listen. Every night, the ruins reveal new patterns. Every alignment, every shadow, every angle is a reminder that the message is both persistent and elusive. The builders designed something that survives time, light, and erosion. Their language is alive in observation, inviting not simply study but reflection, intuition, and imagination. It becomes clear that the symbols and the sky are inseparable. One cannot be understood without the other. The carvings are not merely decoration or record. They are a guide, a map, a language that unites Earth with cosmos, knowledge with observer, mystery with discovery. Chapter 4. Whispers of the Ancients. The carvings are not the only clue the ruins offer. Beneath their surfaces and between the stones lies a resonance that feels like memory, an echo of the hands that once shaped the walls and the minds that guided them. Each mark, each symbol, carries more than meaning. It carries intention. Voices of the past seem to linger in the spaces around the ruins. Scholars speak of a presence, subtle yet persistent, that grows more tangible as one spends time in these ancient sites. It is not sound, but perception, a sense that someone or something is observing, guiding, or waiting. The stones themselves feel charged with the act of creation, as if the builders infused their knowledge into the rock itself, leaving instructions and warnings alongside the symbols. The ancients were observers, recorders, and perhaps communicators. They understood forces beyond their immediate surroundings, forces that dictated the cycles of the sky, the behavior of the earth, and the patterns of life. The carvings are a trace of that understanding, an attempt to preserve knowledge for those who could come later. They whisper of ideas too vast and complex to be spoken aloud, of principles that required permanence and precision. The whisper of the ancients is present in the geometry of the ruins, circles within circles, triangles nested within spirals, lines that intersect with uncanny exactness. These are not random. They form a language, one that communicates through shape, proportion, and alignment. Researchers who study these patterns notice that the symbols often repeat across multiple locations, suggesting shared understanding or a common source of knowledge. It is possible to sense intention in the empty spaces between the carvings. Some walls are deliberately bare, creating contrast that draws attention to certain sequences. Others are aligned to natural light or shadow, as if to emphasize details at specific times of day. The ancients were aware of the environment and designed the ruins to interact with it. Stone and sky, shadow and sun, memory and observation, all become entwined in a choreography of subtle instruction. The whispers extend beyond the visual. Observers describe the sensation of being watched, not by eyes, but by consciousness. Standing in the ruins, tracing the symbols, one can feel a connection that bridges centuries. It is as if the builders anticipated a future audience, those who would come not by chance, but by curiosity and persistence. The stones seem to respond to attention, revealing details previously unnoticed and inspiring questions that lead deeper into the mystery. Some of the carvings are accompanied by reliefs of beings, humanoid or otherwise, whose forms are enigmatic. They are not mere decoration but participants in the message. Their postures suggest guidance, guardianship, and intention. They draw the eye along paths that connect one symbol to another, creating visual sentences that move the observer across walls and through chambers. Their expressions are inscrutable, yet they carry a sense of purpose, a quiet insistence that the observer pay attention and follow the story embedded in stone. The ancients also seem to have encoded warnings alongside knowledge. Certain symbols repeat in ways that feel cautionary, as if the carvings carry instructions about actions that could be dangerous or misused. Lines that resemble diagrams of forces or energy are often paired with motifs suggesting protection, preservation, or restraint. The language of the ruins is not only informative, but prescriptive, guiding behavior as well as understanding. These whispers are amplified when considering the placement of the ruins themselves. Many are built in alignment with natural landmarks, rivers, and mountains, often at points that maximize visibility of celestial events. The ancients understood geography, light, and shadow. They knew how to design spaces where observation, comprehension, and ritual could intersect. The ruins become more than structures. They are instruments, observatories, and classrooms carved in stone. Even the choice of materials carries significance. Hard stone resists erosion, ensuring that messages survive through centuries of wind, rain, and time. The surfaces chosen for the carvings are smooth and reflective in certain light, emphasizing contrast and enhancing visibility. Some symbols are located high on walls, accessible only with effort, suggesting that understanding them required deliberate exploration. Knowledge was not meant to be immediate. It was earned through observation and attention. The whispers persist in how the symbols interact with each other. Patterns echo across chambers, repeating sequences in ways that form rhythm, cadence, and resonance. Observers notice repetition and variation, a subtle musicality in the visual. This suggests that the language of the ruins was multidimensional, encoding not only information but a structure for understanding, memory, and interpretation. Walking through the ruins, it is impossible not to feel small yet connected. Each carving is a bridge between past and present, the known and the unknown, human perception, and something greater. The stones invite inquiry, demand respect, and inspire wonder. The whispers are not audible, but they are perceptible in the careful attention required to trace the lines and decipher the shapes. They guide the observer toward insight, toward comprehension that is intuitive as well as analytical. Some researchers have suggested that the whispers are encoded knowledge about the cosmos, energy, and forces that humans have only begun to understand. Others argue they are spiritual or symbolic, a record of ideas, beliefs, or ceremonies. Whatever the intention, it is clear that these ruins carry a consciousness that transcends ordinary experience, a voice that speaks through stone, geometry, and alignment, calling observers to engage, interpret, and reflect. The whispers of the ancients are subtle yet insistent. They are reminders that knowledge is not always given freely. It must be sought, understood, and preserved. They are invitations to observe with care, to connect intellect with intuition, and to recognize that the past has left instructions that may still hold relevance. The symbols are guidance, the figures are teachers, and the placement of the ruins themselves is a lesson in the interconnection of earth, sky, and human perception. The more time one spends in the ruins, the more intricate the whispers become. Sequences previously overlooked reveal hidden patterns. Shadows highlight lines that were unnoticed before. Alignments become more apparent with careful observation. The ruins demand patience, focus, and curiosity. They reward diligence with insight, yet never reveal everything at once. Knowledge is layered, encoded, and persistent. The whispers of the ancients are not a single message. They are a conversation across time, an exchange of understanding between those who created and those who observe. They ask not for belief but for attention. They invite inquiry, reflection, and interpretation. Every symbol, line, and figure contributes to a dialogue that has endured for centuries, awaiting those who are willing to listen. Chapter 5: Secrets Beneath the Surface. Beneath the visible symbols and structures, the ruins hide a world that is easily overlooked. Cavities, tunnels, and chambers carved into the earth suggest that what is above is only a fraction of the knowledge preserved. Archaeologists and explorers who venture below the surface report passages that twist, turn, and descend far deeper than expected. The stone here is colder, darker, and carries a weight that makes each step feel deliberate, as if the earth itself is aware of their presence. These subterranean spaces are not simple storage areas or shelters. Their walls contain additional carvings, smaller and more intricate than those above. Patterns that appear abstract on the surface are expanded below into sequences and diagrams that are far more detailed. The tunnels are lined with spirals, triangles, and circles connected by thin, precise lines. Some researchers believe these lower chambers contain explanations or expansions of the messages on the walls above. They are extensions of the language, meant to be discovered only by those who explore with care and patience. There is a sense of purpose in the layout. Some corridors align with astronomical features, just like the ruins above. Others point toward underground water sources or natural formations. Shadows cast by torches or sunlight filtered through openings reveal hidden details, suggesting that light and perspective were considered in the original design. These chambers are more than passageways. They are instruments of observation and reflection, guiding attention and thought in deliberate ways. Within the subterranean network, there are unusual formations that hint at functions beyond human understanding. Smooth depressions in the stone, raised platforms, and carved recesses appear as if designed to interact with objects, light, or sound. Some chambers include shapes that echo celestial diagrams, patterns of energy, and sequences that suggest measurement or calculation. The builders were encoding knowledge at multiple scales, connecting the microcosm of the tunnels with the macrocosm of the universe above. Artifacts found in some of these chambers defy conventional explanation. Small objects of polished stone, metal, or crystal are arranged in sequences that correspond with the carvings. Some researchers interpret them as instruments, tools for measurement, or devices for demonstration. Others suggest symbolic or ritual significance, representations of concepts that cannot easily be rendered in words. Whatever their purpose, these objects reinforce the sense that the underground spaces were created as extensions of a larger system of understanding. Sound behaves strangely in these tunnels. Some corridors carry a faint resonance that amplifies footsteps or whispers. Certain recesses seem to echo vibrations in ways that suggest intentional design. Researchers have speculated that the builders may have been aware of acoustics, using it as part of the communication system. It is a subtle reminder that every aspect of these spaces, from light to sound, was carefully considered. Nothing appears accidental. The tunnels are also a testament to endurance. Carved into rock that resists decay, they have preserved intricate messages for centuries. Stalactites and mineral deposits sometimes grow over carvings, creating natural layers that complement the symbols. This interaction between human design and natural processes adds another layer of meaning, as if the ruins are alive, continuing to record and evolve over time. Exploration is not without risk. The deeper passages are narrow, uneven, and often require careful navigation. Yet those who venture into these spaces report a heightened sense of connection with the past. There is a feeling that the builders were present in spirit, guiding, observing, and waiting. Each turn of the corridor, each carved line, feels like a conversation that transcends centuries. Many of the deeper carvings contain sequences that correspond with energy, motion, and celestial alignment. Spirals may indicate orbits, lines may mark gravitational angles, and dots may encode time or frequency. Some tunnels appear to mirror structures above ground, creating a duality between surface and subterranean spaces. The ruins are not confined to one dimension. They are layered, complex, and multidimensional, preserving knowledge at scales both visible and hidden. The presence of repeated motifs suggests a continuity of purpose. Symbols in the tunnels echo those on the walls above, sometimes in greater detail, sometimes in abstract form. This repetition implies a careful pedagogy, a system designed to teach, guide, or reveal over time. It is a language that operates across layers of perception, requiring observation, reflection, and comprehension. Light becomes a tool in these underground spaces. Shafts of sunlight or reflected torchlight highlight carvings at precise angles, revealing hidden sequences. Shadows trace lines that are otherwise invisible, creating diagrams that appear only in specific conditions. This interplay of illumination and obscurity reinforces the idea that knowledge was encoded not only in stone but in the environment, waiting for those attentive enough to notice. Artifacts and carvings together suggest a society deeply aware of forces that extend beyond immediate experience. They encode motion, cycles, and phenomena that surpass the technological capacity of the builders. Some tunnels contain chambers that resemble laboratories, observatories, or classrooms. The spaces are functional, intellectual, and perhaps ritualistic, designed for both understanding and interaction. Even the walls themselves are remarkable. Smooth in some sections, rough in others, they are arranged to create a rhythm of observation. Certain symbols align along axes, points of perspective, or natural features. Others form clusters that may encode higher-level concepts or relationships between physical and metaphysical forces. The tunnels are not static. They invite movement, engagement, and interpretation. The deeper one ventures, the more the ruins feel alive. Every line, every pattern, every object seems to resonate with purpose. The builders appear to have anticipated exploration, designing the underground spaces as extensions of a broader system of knowledge. Light, shadow, sound, and touch are all part of the experience, guiding observers toward understanding in ways that are subtle, immersive, and profound. The underground spaces are not simply storage or shelter. They are instruments, classrooms, and archives. They carry the memory of the builders and the knowledge of forces that are timeless. They are designed to challenge, instruct, and inspire. They whisper not only of the past but also of potential understanding that may one day be realized. The secrets beneath the surface are vast and multi-layered. They mirror what is above ground while adding depth, complexity, and nuance. They suggest a civilization that thought in terms of both time and space, aware of forces beyond immediate perception, and determined to preserve knowledge for those willing to explore, observe, and interpret. Chapter 6. Patterns across continents. The mystery of the symbols does not end at a single site. Observers who study ruins across continents begin to notice patterns that defy geography. Spirals, circles, triangles, and sequences of dots repeat in locations separated by oceans and mountains. The similarities suggest more than coincidence. There is a thread of knowledge running through distant civilizations, connecting builders who never met, yet produced remarkably consistent symbols. These patterns hint at shared understanding or instruction. They are not random designs, but deliberate arrangements that encode knowledge about the cosmos, energy, and motion. Some alignments correspond to celestial events visible only from certain latitudes, suggesting the builders accounted for their position on the globe. Others match geological features, river courses, or mountain peaks, creating a network that integrates earth and sky. The repetition of motifs is striking. Triangles with precise angles appear in South America, Africa, and Asia. Spirals that mirror orbital paths are found in Europe and the Middle East. Even the orientation of the ruins shows remarkable consistency. Certain lines point to the same celestial markers across continents, as if the builders shared a common reference frame, a universal language of symbols and alignment. Researchers studying these connections have mapped sequences that form invisible grids. These grids link distant sites, revealing relationships that are not apparent from the ground alone. Lines connecting ruins often intersect with significant astronomical positions, hinting at a knowledge of geometry, navigation, and cosmic mechanics that surpasses what is traditionally attributed to ancient civilizations. Artifacts found at these sites reinforce the idea of shared purpose. Objects shaped similarly, arranged in comparable patterns, suggest that builders across continents adhered to common practices. Some objects reflect celestial or energy-related concepts, mirroring the carvings and reinforcing the idea of a universal system of knowledge. There is a consistency of design, intent, and symbolism that implies communication or instruction over vast distances. The recurrence of patterns raises questions about the origins of the knowledge. Were the builders inspired by the same source, or were they in direct contact with one another? Could there have been a guiding intelligence, transmitting information across continents and centuries, shaping civilizations to encode understanding in stone and artifact? The implications are profound, suggesting a web of knowledge that transcends culture and geography. Patterns are also found in the placement of ruins themselves. Sites separated by thousands of miles often align with solar, lunar, or planetary events in ways that mirror each other. Observers have noted that certain star alignments visible at one site correspond to sequences at another site far away. This coordination suggests a deliberate integration of knowledge across the globe, a network of observation and instruction that spans continents. The aesthetic consistency is equally compelling. Symbols carved in one region bear striking resemblance to those found halfway across the world. Circles, spirals, and angles share proportions and scales that are mathematically precise. It is as if the builders adhered to a shared standard, a blueprint of understanding that guided the creation of multiple sites. This precision extends to the interaction with light, shadow, and perspective, creating effects that are consistent across distant locations. The more observers study, the more connections emerge. Some sites encode planetary orbits, others gravitational patterns, and others still encode cycles of energy or resonance. Taken together, these sites form a system of knowledge that is both vast and intricate. It is a language of patterns, a map of understanding that requires careful observation, comparison, and interpretation. Even subtle features reveal intentionality. Minor variations in carvings, angles, or placement appear to correspond with local conditions, environmental features, or specific astronomical markers. These adjustments suggest that while the builders shared a universal system, they also tailored it to their surroundings, creating a network that was both standardized and adaptive. The patterns challenge assumptions about the spread of knowledge in ancient times. Conventional history suggests that civilizations were isolated, developing independently. Yet the evidence of shared symbols, alignments, and sequences indicates a level of coordination, communication, or influence that defies traditional explanations. It is as though a hidden network of knowledge guided multiple cultures simultaneously. Some observers theorize that this network was intentional, designed to encode knowledge in a form that could survive centuries. It could serve as a record for future generations, a teaching system, or even a method of guidance. The repeated patterns across continents suggest that understanding was valued above all else, preserved in stone, alignment, and artifact for those who could decipher it. The patterns are not only visual but also experiential. Observers report that walking through one site evokes connections with another, that gestures, measurements, and observations feel familiar despite vast distances. The language of symbols is multidimensional, linking space, observation, and comprehension into a coherent system that spans the globe. The discovery of these patterns is ongoing. Satellite imagery, ground surveys, and comparative studies continue to reveal correlations that were previously unnoticed. Each discovery adds depth to the understanding of the network, reinforcing the idea that the builders shared insight that was far more sophisticated than previously believed. It is impossible not to be humbled by the consistency and scale of the knowledge encoded across continents. The patterns suggest intelligence, foresight, and intention. They are a reminder that ancient civilizations were not simply isolated societies, but participants in a system of understanding that was global, precise, and enduring. The connections invite further exploration, challenging observers to trace lines, measure angles, and compare sites. The ruins are no longer isolated monuments but nodes in a network, each contributing to a larger, more profound story. The network stretches across the Earth, connecting human experience with cosmic knowledge, past with present, observation with understanding. As researchers continue to explore these patterns, new questions emerge. Who guided this knowledge across continents? How much did the builders understand of the cosmos, energy, and natural forces? And what messages remain encoded in the symbols, waiting for those with the patience and insight to uncover them? Each site is a piece of a larger puzzle. Each symbol, object, and alignment contributes to a story that spans continents and centuries. The patterns are a testament to intelligence, curiosity, and the desire to preserve understanding in a form that survives the passage of time. They invite observers to engage with the past, explore connections, and imagine the depth of knowledge that ancient builders possessed. The patterns across continents suggest that the language of the symbols is universal. It bridges distance, culture, and time. Observers who trace these lines, compare sites, and decode sequences may come closer to understanding the full scope of this ancient knowledge. Yet, even as connections emerge, much remains hidden, waiting for discovery, interpretation, and insight. The ruins across continents whisper of a civilization or influence that understood far more than is commonly acknowledged. They speak of shared purpose, intelligence, and observation. They guide the observer to see connections, to consider possibilities, and to imagine a world where knowledge was preserved, encoded, and transmitted with intention. Each pattern, when traced and compared, becomes a key. Each ruin, a node in a network, and each observer, a participant in a conversation that has spanned the globe and centuries. The mysteries persist, urging further exploration, careful observation, and the pursuit of understanding that goes beyond what is immediately visible. Chapter 7. Hidden Messages in the Sky. The symbols on the ground often point upward. Alignments, angles, and sequences suggest a connection to celestial events, indicating that the ancient builders were keenly aware of the sky above. Observers note that certain symbols are oriented towards solstices, equinoxes, and the rising of specific stars. The ruins become instruments of observation, tracking the movements of planets, moons, and constellations with precision that rivals modern astronomy. Some patterns only reveal their meaning when viewed from above. Aerial surveys show that certain arrangements form geometric shapes or sequences invisible from the ground. Spirals, circles, and lines connect with distant features, creating diagrams that suggest understanding of the heavens. Observers who study these aerial perspectives often feel as though they are glimpsing a language designed for the cosmos itself, a message that communicates across space and time. The sky itself interacts with the ruins. Light reflects differently across walls, carvings, and structures, depending on the position of the sun or moon. Shadows stretch and shift, tracing lines that form patterns not immediately visible at other times. Observers describe standing in specific locations and witnessing beams of sunlight illuminate particular symbols, creating a fleeting alignment that seems deliberate and instructive. Astronomical correspondence is not limited to the sun and moon. Some symbols align with planetary cycles or stellar patterns. Lines carved into stone extend toward horizons that mark celestial events. The positioning suggests that the builders had detailed knowledge of orbital mechanics, star movements, and cycles that were not easily observed without careful measurement. These alignments may have been used for ritual, calculation, or the transmission of knowledge. The sky also carries a symbolic language. Certain formations of symbols echo constellations, suggesting that the builders mapped the heavens onto the earth. Triangles, dots, and spirals correspond with star positions, creating a terrestrial reflection of the cosmos. Observers report a sense of continuity between the heavens and the ruins, as if the sky itself were part of the design, another canvas for encoded knowledge. Observers have noticed subtle markings that indicate motion or sequence. Some lines curve to match the apparent path of stars, while others point to eclipses or planetary conjunctions. These patterns suggest that the builders were not simply recording observations, but creating a dynamic system that tracked cycles, predicted events, and preserved understanding for those who could interpret it. The interaction of earth and sky is further emphasized by light-sensitive symbols. Certain carvings are positioned to glow or become more visible at specific times of day or year. Observers who document these occurrences describe a sense of precision and intentionality that suggests knowledge of angles, timing, and geometry. The ruins function as calendars, observatories, and guides, all encoded in symbols that blend art, science, and understanding. The skies themselves appear to mirror motifs found in the ruins. Spirals seen in stone echo patterns of galaxies or the motion of planets. Concentric circles correspond with eclipses, solstices, or cycles of lunar phases. These correspondences suggest that the builders were observing the universe at multiple scales, linking microcosm and macrocosm, stone and sky, symbol and event. Patterns in the sky reveal a layering of knowledge. Observers who study the ruins in conjunction with celestial charts notice that sequences repeat, but with variations that encode additional information. A spiral may indicate orbit, but a dot along its curve may represent energy, timing, or resonance. The builders encoded multidimensional understanding in forms that are both visual and spatial, requiring observation, reflection, and deduction. The sky also serves as a reference for alignment and measurement. Certain symbols correspond with star positions at particular times of year, suggesting a system for navigation, calculation, or prediction. The precision of these alignments indicates that the builders were not only observers but also planners, integrating knowledge of cycles and celestial mechanics into their architecture and carvings. Observers report a sense of awe when witnessing these alignments. Standing in the correct location at the right time, one can see sunlight or moonlight illuminate a specific symbol or group of symbols. Shadows may trace geometric sequences, creating a temporary map of motion and energy. These experiences suggest that the ruins were designed to teach, to guide, and to reveal understanding through interaction with the environment. Some of the most striking alignments involve rare celestial events. Eclipses, conjunctions, and solstices appear to correspond with specific carvings or structures. Observers describe how the builders encoded timing, direction, and significance in ways that create a connection between the Earth and the cosmos. The ruins function as a bridge, linking human experience with universal cycles. The knowledge encoded in the sky patterns extends beyond observation. It suggests comprehension of forces and cycles, of cause and effect, that surpasses what is typically attributed to ancient civilizations. Some alignments correspond with energy flow, resonance, or vibrational patterns, hinting at an understanding of principles that are subtle, complex, and advanced. The interaction between symbols, light, and celestial events creates a system of instruction. Observers who engage with the ruins in this way begin to recognize rules, sequences, and relationships. Knowledge is not delivered in words but in experience, in positioning, in observation, and in careful attention to detail. The builders created a system that requires participation, thought, and perception. Even distant stars influence the layout of ruins. Lines and symbols trace paths towards celestial markers invisible to the casual observer. Observers describe a sense of connection, as though the builders intended humans to see relationships between earth and sky, to understand cycles, to observe patterns, and to consider their place within a larger system. The sky becomes a teacher, and the ruins act as guides. Symbols, alignment, and light create lessons that are subtle yet profound. Observers must look, move, and reflect to comprehend the full scope of knowledge preserved in stone. The interaction is intentional, designed to engage the senses, intellect, and intuition simultaneously. The messages in the sky echo across ruins, continents, and time. Observers who trace alignments, compare sequences, and follow light and shadow begin to glimpse a network of knowledge that transcends geography and culture. It is a system that connects builders to the cosmos, earth to sky, past to present, and observer to understanding. Patterns of light, motion, and alignment reveal that the ruins were part of a larger design. Observers begin to see connections between sites, between symbols, and between earth and stars. The messages encoded in the ruins and the sky create a framework for understanding that is complex, precise, and enduring. Every symbol, alignment, and sequence is intentional. The builders considered the interaction of light, shadow, celestial motion, and observation. The knowledge encoded is multidimensional, inviting the observer to participate in a dialogue that spans time and space. It is a lesson in observation, reflection, and connection. The sky and the ruins together whisper of intelligence, foresight, and intention. They guide, instruct, and inspire those willing to engage. Observers who trace symbols, follow alignments, and note celestial events are participants in an ancient system of knowledge. The messages are hidden yet perceptible, subtle yet insistent, and they point toward understanding that reaches beyond the visible and into the cosmos. Chapter 8. The Hidden Script. Beneath layers of dust, sediment, and the passage of centuries, faint carvings emerge on stone surfaces. markings so precise that they defy casual dismissal. They are small, delicate lines, spirals, and dots, appearing almost as if someone had traced them with a steady hand guided by an unseen force. Each symbol seems deliberate, placed with care and intention, forming a pattern that whispers of meaning long forgotten. Observers who study the stones carefully notice repetition. Certain motifs recur across walls, floors, and pillars. Spirals mirror other spirals, lines intersect with angles that appear elsewhere, creating a rhythm and continuity that suggests an unseen script. It is not merely decoration or random etching. There is purpose here, encoded in ways that only patience, observation, and thought can begin to reveal. Light brings the carvings to life. As the sun shifts across the sky, or torchlight sweeps along the surfaces, shadows reveal subtle curves and depth. Symbols that were invisible in dimness suddenly stand out, forming sequences that almost seem to move, guiding the eye along paths and intersections. Observers describe the effect as watching a hidden story unfold, one that can only be perceived when conditions are just right. The markings suggest a language of geometry, spirals suggest cycles, circles imply completion, and lines connect points in ways that hint at measurement, alignment, and proportion. Some sequences appear to encode motion, direction, or rhythm. Others seem to map connections between distant points, as though the stones themselves contain instructions for navigating space, time, or energy. Touch adds another layer of understanding. Rubbing fingers along the grooves, observers report subtle variations in depth, width, and texture. Certain carvings feel warmer, smoother, or more worn than others, as though the stone carries memory of countless interactions. The markings are not only visual but experiential, designed to communicate through perception as much as observation. Some symbols are partially hidden beneath broken stones, overgrown with moss, or embedded in layers of sediment. Excavation and careful brushing reveal details that hint at complexity previously unnoticed. Observers notice secondary patterns hidden within larger shapes, sequences that layer one over another, suggesting a multidimensional script that can convey multiple levels of meaning simultaneously. Connections emerge between the carvings and the surrounding environment. Angles align with the rising sun, the direction of rivers, or the slope of hills. Certain symbols correspond with reflections of light or shadow across walls and floors. The ruins seem to interact with natural phenomena, as though the builders designed the script not just for the eye, but for interaction with the world around it. Artifacts found nearby appear to complement the carvings. Small stones, tools, and ceramic fragments bear similar markings or geometric echoes. Some seem to serve as guides, keys, or instruments that reveal additional aspects of the hidden script. The combination of stone, artifact, and environment creates a system of encoded knowledge that invites exploration, observation, and interpretation. Observers begin to speculate on the purpose of the script. Is it a record of events, a teaching tool, or a map to something beyond the ruins themselves? The precision and intentionality of the carvings suggest intelligence, planning, and understanding. The builders encoded something important, something that transcends ordinary storytelling or decoration. The hidden script extends beyond the immediate sight. Comparisons with distant ruins reveal motifs that echo across continents, symbols that resemble one another despite the vast distances separating them. Observers are confronted with the possibility of a shared system of knowledge, a language not confined to culture, geography, or time. Each discovery leads to more questions. How did the builders conceive of such precision? What knowledge informed the carvings? Could the script encode understanding of the cosmos, energy, or mathematics? As observers trace the lines, measure angles, and map patterns, the sense grows that the ruins were not merely structures, but a medium for communication designed to last centuries. The hidden script challenges perception. Observers report that the more they focus, the more connections appear. Sequences that seemed random reveal rhythm and logic. Small variations suddenly make sense as part of a broader framework. The markings are alive with instruction, guiding thought, observation, and understanding through subtle visual and spatial cues. Light and shadow, observation and touch, structure and symbol all converge in the hidden script. The markings form a bridge between the physical and the conceptual, between the builder and the observer. They invite engagement, reflection, and interpretation, drawing the viewer into a dialogue that spans generations. The carvings are patient, waiting for understanding. They reveal themselves slowly, layer by layer, challenging the observer to notice, trace, and connect. Each symbol, each line, carries intention, and the cumulative effect is a sense of design, intelligence, and hidden purpose. The script is an invitation to engage with a world of knowledge that is simultaneously familiar and extraordinary. The more one studies, the more the carvings speak of order, continuity, and connection. They hint at principles of harmony, proportion, and cosmic awareness. Observers sense that the builders were encoding understanding for those capable of perceiving it, leaving guidance that survives in stone, light, and shadow. Every discovery of a hidden marking adds depth to the story. Sequences overlap, symbols resonate, and patterns emerge across surfaces. The script is multidimensional, both simple in its immediate forms and complex in the relationships that unfold with observation. The ruins are alive with knowledge, a silent teacher awaiting those who can read the subtle language of stone. The hidden script is not complete, but it is inviting. It is a system designed to engage, to challenge, and to reveal. Each carved line, each symbol, each pattern contributes to a story encoded across space, time, and perception. Observers are left with a sense of awe, curiosity, and the persistent feeling that there is far more to uncover. Chapter 9. Mathematics is the invisible thread woven through the ruins. Spirals, lines, and angles reveal sequences that are precise, deliberate, and astonishingly complex. Observers note that these patterns are not confined to one location or culture. They appear repeatedly across sites separated by vast distances, suggesting knowledge that transcends geography, tradition, or the limitations of a single civilization. The symbols themselves seem to encode numerical relationships. Ratios emerge between lengths of lines, distances between carvings, and proportions of circles. Spirals expand according to sequences that echo natural patterns, cycles found in plants, shells, and celestial formations. Observers begin to sense a rhythm, a logic that is consistent, replicable, and deeply intentional. Angles and alignments extend beyond aesthetics. Certain symbols point toward celestial markers, mapping the movements of stars, planets, and moons with precision that rivals modern instrumentation. Observers describe feeling as though the builders possessed a system of measurement that linked the earth to the heavens, using symbols to capture cycles, predict events, and convey understanding across generations. The universal code is multidimensional. Lines, spirals, and shapes do not exist in isolation. Each sequence relates to others, forming networks of meaning that overlay the ruins. Observers who trace these connections note that patterns repeat with subtle variations, as though the builders were encoding layers of knowledge, from simple counting to complex calculations, from observation to prediction. Some markings correspond with sound and vibration. Patterns of spacing and proportion suggest resonance, rhythm, and flow. Observers describe placing objects near carvings and noticing subtle harmonics or alignment effects. The ruins themselves seem to act as instruments, translating energy, geometry, and mathematics into perceptible experience. The mathematical principles appear to extend into the cosmos. Ratios and sequences echo planetary motion, orbital paths, and stellar cycles. Observers are struck by the precision, wondering how ancient builders could achieve such accuracy. It seems that the symbols were not merely practical, but encoded understanding of universal patterns, bridging human experience with the cosmos. Observers note fractal-like repetition in the symbols. Shapes repeat within shapes, sequences recur across scales, and patterns mirror one another across distance and orientation. This layered structure suggests that the builders intended the knowledge to operate on multiple levels, offering insight to the attentive and patient observer while concealing complexity from the casual eye. The code seems to be a language of proportion, alignment, and symmetry. Triangles, circles, spirals, and dots combine to form messages that transcend conventional writing or pictographs. Observers feel that the markings communicate understanding in a way that is both abstract and tangible, simultaneously a record of observation and a guide to action. Connections between the universal code and natural phenomena are striking. Some patterns correspond to tides, seasons, or cycles of plant and animal life. Others align with solar and lunar events. Observers realize that the builders were mapping relationships that span time, space, and experience, embedding knowledge in a system that could endure centuries or millennia. The code also suggests energy relationships. Some sequences highlight intersections, nodes, or alignments that correspond with magnetic, gravitational, or vibrational points. Observers speculate that the builders understood principles of force, resonance, and balance, encoding them in symbols that operate on physical and conceptual levels simultaneously. Observers report a sense of awe when tracing the sequences. The precision, repetition, and subtle variation suggest intelligence, intention, and foresight. The universal code is not merely symbolic but functional, a system that encodes knowledge, facilitates observation, and communicates principles that bridge human perception with universal truths. Patterns in the code appear to be teaching tools. Observers describe sequences that repeat with slight variations, guiding understanding step by step. Simple observations lead to deeper comprehension as the relationships between symbols, measurements, and alignments emerge. The ruins act as classrooms, laboratories, and observatories, designed to transmit knowledge without words. The universal code invites participation. Observers who move through the ruins, trace symbols, and note alignments begin to see relationships unfold. The experience is interactive, requiring observation, deduction, and reflection. Each discovery leads to new questions. Each sequence opens new possibilities, and each pattern reinforces the sense that the builders intended for knowledge to be explored actively. Connections extend beyond individual sites. Observers who compare locations note shared sequences, alignments, and ratios, as if the builders were part of a network of understanding that spanned cultures and continents. The code suggests a shared language of mathematics and observation, one that transcends human boundaries and hints at intelligence that bridges space and time. Observers describe the code as both precise and mysterious. Each symbol has meaning, yet the full extent of the system is not immediately apparent. Repetition, variation, and alignment create a rhythm that engages the mind and senses. The ruins are not only records of observation but instruments for experiencing and interacting with knowledge itself. The universal code connects stone to sky, earth to cosmos, symbol to sequence. Observers note that each discovery illuminates broader patterns, revealing relationships that are subtle, elegant, and consistent. The knowledge embedded in the ruins reflects understanding of cycles, forces, and geometry, offering a glimpse into the minds of builders whose comprehension was extraordinary. The more observers study, the more the code unfolds. Lines intersect, spirals expand, and sequences repeat in ways that hint at principles both practical and metaphysical. The ruins are guides, teaching through interaction, observation, and engagement. The universal code is an invitation to see, to think, and to connect with knowledge that spans centuries and continents. Chapter 10. Beyond Human Hands. Some inscriptions defy explanation. The precision of the carvings, the complexity of the patterns, and the knowledge they seem to encode challenge the understanding of modern scholars. Observers note angles, proportions, and alignments that suggest advanced awareness of mathematics, astronomy, and physics, far beyond what would have been expected of the ancient builders. Certain symbols appear in unexpected locations, on stones too massive or too high for traditional construction techniques. Some carvings are perfectly aligned despite irregular surfaces, edges, and natural distortions in the rock. The meticulous placement implies tools, skills, or insight that remain unexplained. Researchers question how humans of the era could have achieved such perfection without the aid of instruments or technology that seem anachronistic. The materials themselves are unusual. Some carvings are etched into stones of extraordinary hardness, and yet the lines are crisp, precise, and uniform. Observers speculate about methods, tools, and processes, but no conventional technique seems to fully account for the results. The inscriptions retain clarity, despite centuries of weathering, erosion, and human contact, as if the builders anticipated time itself and designed the symbols to endure. The inscriptions sometimes contain sequences that mirror cosmic phenomena. Spirals replicate orbital patterns, lines echo gravitational relationships, and proportions reflect ratios observed in planetary motion. Observers note that these patterns are consistent across multiple sites, suggesting not random coincidence but intentional design. The builders encoded knowledge that transcends human observation and understanding. Some carvings reveal a form of dimensional awareness. Patterns extend across multiple surfaces, connecting walls, floors, and ceilings. Observers trace these sequences and realize that they only make complete sense when viewed as a three-dimensional whole. The inscriptions are multidimensional, forming a language of space as well as symbol. The sheer scale and repetition of certain inscriptions also suggest extraordinary planning and understanding. Sequences recur with subtle variations that encode additional information. Observers describe the effect as reading a sentence, then discovering a second layer of meaning embedded within the same line of stone. The builders were creating messages that operate on multiple levels simultaneously. Analysis of the inscriptions indicates knowledge of material science. Certain lines appear to interact with sunlight, moonlight, or reflections from other surfaces. Observers describe how some symbols illuminate only under specific conditions, creating sequences of light and shadow that reveal hidden patterns. The inscriptions are not passive but interactive, designed to respond to environmental factors with intention and sophistication. Observers also notice elements that suggest knowledge of energy. Certain carvings correspond with magnetic alignments, resonant points, or natural channels of energy in the environment. Walking through the ruins, researchers report a sensation of subtle vibrations or harmonics that reinforce the placement of symbols. The builders seem to understand forces and relationships that remain obscure today. Scholars debate the origin of some inscriptions. Were they the product of human genius, or do they hint at contact with knowledge beyond the ordinary? Some sequences include concepts, proportions, and sequences that appear decades or centuries ahead of recorded discovery. Observers are left with a sense that the builders were tapping into understanding not commonly associated with the period or culture. The inscriptions encourage careful observation. Each symbol, angle, and alignment demands attention, revealing more as understanding deepens. Observers describe a feeling of dialogue with the builders, as if the carvings are teaching, guiding, and challenging the mind to perceive relationships that are hidden in plain sight. Certain inscriptions suggest a system of communication that transcends language. Patterns of dots, lines, and spirals operate as codes, maps, or sequences that convey information in abstract form. Observers note that the inscriptions can describe motion, measurement, or relationships without using words. The language of the symbols is universal, geometric, and functional, intended to communicate knowledge across generations and contexts. The precision of the carvings hints at unseen tools or techniques. Some symbols are so exact, so perfectly rendered, that observers speculate about instruments or methods lost to history. The builders demonstrated an understanding of measurement, proportion, and geometry that challenges assumptions about human capabilities in the period. Connections emerge between inscriptions and natural cycles. Some patterns align with the sun, moon, stars, or seasonal events. Others correspond to environmental markers such as rivers, mountain ridges, or geological features. The builders were encoding knowledge that links human activity, celestial observation, and environmental awareness into a coherent system. Observers report a sense of wonder when studying the inscriptions. The patterns evoke curiosity, challenge assumptions, and invite deeper exploration. The knowledge encoded in stone is not static. It interacts with perception, measurement, and insight. The inscriptions communicate with those who are willing to look, touch, trace, and consider the relationships carefully. The experience of the inscriptions is transformative. Observers describe the sense of stepping beyond conventional understanding, of engaging with a system of knowledge that is deliberate, intelligent, and far-reaching. The builders left a record that is simultaneously practical, symbolic, and enigmatic, a challenge to human comprehension and a testament to extraordinary insight. The inscriptions stand as a reminder that understanding is layered. They reveal themselves gradually, requiring attention, patience, and perception. Each new discovery opens new questions, highlighting the depth, sophistication, and intention of the builders. Observers leave with the sense that they have only begun to grasp the full meaning of symbols that seem to come from beyond human
Chapter
hands.
11.
The return of the symbols. The symbols of the past do not remain confined to stone and ruin. Observers report similar shapes appearing in the skies, glowing faintly against the darkness, moving with a grace and precision that defy conventional understanding. Circles, spirals, and geometric forms manifest in lights and shadows, echoing the inscriptions carved into ancient stones. Sightings occur in locations far from the ruins themselves. Observers describe hovering lights that trace patterns similar to those documented in the carvings. Triangles, intersecting lines, and circular sequences appear to replicate the proportions found in the ancient script. The effect is uncanny, as if the symbols have leapt from stone into the heavens, carrying their messages across space. Some occurrences are subtle. A single light hovers above a hilltop, pulsing rhythmically, drawing attention to natural formations that mirror the patterns of the ruins. Other sightings are more dramatic, displaying sequences of movement that suggest intent, intelligence, and communication. Observers are struck by the uncanny alignment between the ancient carvings and the ephemeral phenomena above them. The return of the symbols challenges perception. Observers note that the lights do not behave like conventional aircraft or celestial bodies. They move abruptly, shift direction instantly, and sometimes vanish only to reappear elsewhere. The patterns replicate angles, spirals, and arrangements that correspond closely to the hidden scripts, universal codes, and inscriptions studied in ruins. Reports describe sequences that appear in series, forming shapes that mimic the organization of stone markings. Triangular formations align perfectly with cardinal directions. Circular lights expand and contract with rhythms that echo spiral carvings. Observers begin to suspect that these appearances are not random but follow principles encoded millennia ago. The connection is reinforced when multiple observers in distant locations report seeing the same sequences. A pattern emerges, suggesting that the symbols are part of a network, a system that transcends distance, culture, and perception. The lights are not isolated incidents, but a continuation of the hidden communication first encoded in stone. Some sightings coincide with natural events. Light patterns appear during eclipses, planetary alignments, or periods of significant celestial activity. Observers speculate that the symbols interact with environmental forces, activating in response to cosmic rhythms, much like the original inscriptions were designed to engage with sun, moon, and stars. The phenomenon raises questions about origin and purpose. Are these manifestations, projections of intelligence, remnants of ancient knowledge, or signals intended to guide, instruct, or test observers? The lights seem to invite attention, observation, and interpretation, creating a bridge between the ancient past and the present. Witnesses describe a sense of awe and mystery. The symbols evoke the same feeling that emerges when tracing carvings in stone: curiosity, fascination, and a quiet understanding that there is more than meets the eye. Observers feel drawn into a dialogue with forces, intelligence, or consciousness that transcends ordinary human experience. Patterns observed in the sky often mirror those found in distant ruins, suggesting a continuity of knowledge. Circles appear above hills. Spirals trace paths that correspond to sequences etched in ancient stones, and angles align with cardinal points marked on Earth. Observers are confronted with the possibility that the symbols are enduring messages, preserved in stone and sky, meant to be noticed, studied, and understood. Some sequences display movement that seems purposeful. Lights rotate, expand, contract, and shift in ways that echo the dimensions, alignments, and proportions of ancient carvings. Observers speculate that the symbols are active, responsive, and intelligent, capable of interacting with perception, environment, and consciousness itself. The return of the symbols also inspires technological curiosity. Scientists and enthusiasts attempt to record, analyze, and decode the patterns. High-resolution photography, infrared imaging, and motion tracking reveal nuances that suggest precise control and intention. Observers are fascinated by the complexity, elegance, and coherence of these patterns, hinting at knowledge far beyond conventional human understanding. In some cases, the symbols appear near modern constructions, creating startling juxtapositions. A glowing spiral hovers above a city, reflecting off buildings and streets, while angles mirror structures designed centuries later. Observers are left with the sense that the symbols transcend context, appearing in a way that bridges past, present, and human activity. The experience is often transformative. Observers report heightened awareness, a sense of connection to distant knowledge, and a profound curiosity about the origin of these manifestations. The symbols are not merely visual, they evoke thought, reflection, and imagination, encouraging those who witness them to consider deeper possibilities about intelligence, history, and the universe. The return of the symbols challenges the line between history and experience. Ancient carvings and celestial manifestations interact, suggesting that knowledge is enduring, layered, and accessible to those willing to observe carefully. Observers find themselves tracing patterns, comparing stone and sky, and gradually perceiving the continuity that links past and present. The phenomenon also inspires speculation about communication. Are the lights a continuation of messages first encoded in stone? Do they signal to humanity, inviting understanding, reflection, or collaboration? Observers sense intelligence behind the sequences, a purposeful presence that seeks engagement rather than mere observation. The shapes, rhythms, and alignments hint at universal principles. Observers begin to recognize repetition, proportion, and resonance, echoing the hidden scripts and universal codes of ancient ruins. Each appearance reinforces the sense that these symbols are not isolated, but part of an intricate system that bridges civilizations, knowledge, and perception. The return of the symbols leaves observers with both awe and questions. Patterns repeat, sequences unfold, and connections become apparent, yet the full meaning remains elusive. Each sighting is a fragment of a larger narrative, an invitation to explore, interpret, and connect with knowledge that transcends time, culture, and human expectation. The phenomenon persists, subtle and persistent, guiding observers to consider the extraordinary continuity between ancient ruins and modern skies. The symbols have returned, but they are patient, waiting for those capable of perceiving their significance and engaging with their enduring message. Chapter 12. The Final Translation. After centuries of observation, analysis, and speculation, the symbols reveal themselves with increasing clarity. What once appeared as isolated markings and scattered lights now form a coherent system. Observers begin to perceive relationships that span ruins, landscapes, and skies, connecting stone, symbol, and celestial phenomenon into a single, intricate tapestry of meaning. The carvings and manifestations converge into sequences that suggest guidance rather than warning. Spirals and lines align with celestial markers, linking stars, planets, and moons to specific formations on Earth. Observers trace the symbols and begin to sense a rhythm, a pattern of knowledge designed to communicate observation, understanding, and perspective rather than fear. The final translation is multidimensional. Symbols on stone, in the sky, and across geographic locations correspond to principles of geometry, mathematics, and astronomy. Observers note ratios that match orbital patterns, spirals that reflect growth and evolution, and alignments that echo gravitational or magnetic forces. The system encodes knowledge that bridges human perception with universal patterns. The carvings also convey temporal awareness. Some sequences appear to mark cycles of seasons, lunar phases, or stellar movements, providing insight into the natural rhythms that govern the planet. Observers realize that the builders were recording the passage of time, predicting movement, and preserving understanding in forms that endure far beyond a single generation. The symbols suggest a philosophy of connection. Lines, spirals, and angles link observation to comprehension, space to awareness, and matter to energy. Observers describe feeling part of a larger system, where human presence, attention, and understanding interact with universal forces in a subtle and deliberate dance. The symbols act as both map and guide, charting not just location or movement, but understanding itself. The final translation reveals intention. The builders encoded knowledge in a way that invites engagement. Observers report a sense of being guided, of following a path laid centuries ago, with each symbol and sequence offering insight to those patient and attentive enough to trace it. The system is participatory, requiring interaction, observation, and contemplation. Patterns emerge that connect past and present. Symbols carved into ancient stones mirror lights and sequences in modern skies. Observers recognize the continuity and deliberate recurrence, perceiving the symbols as a dialogue across time, bridging generations, civilizations, and perhaps even species. The carvings and celestial forms are not random but orchestrated, part of a living system of knowledge. The final translation also emphasizes harmony. Sequences suggest balance in movement, proportion, and placement. Spirals expand with rhythm, angles converge in symmetry, and alignments reflect the cycles of natural forces. Observers describe the symbols as a guide to perception, a tool to recognize patterns in nature, thought, and existence itself. The symbols are not a message of fear or warning. They are invitations to perceive, learn, and connect. Observers sense the builder's intent to preserve understanding, to communicate principles of observation, alignment, and relationship that transcend human culture and comprehension. The markings encourage reflection, interaction, and insight. The final translation resonates with patience and attention. Observers who trace patterns carefully discover layers of meaning, from the simple repetition of shape to complex networks of geometry, proportion, and resonance. Knowledge is embedded in subtlety, requiring observation, deduction, and contemplation to uncover the full depth of intent. The carvings, when considered alongside modern manifestations, reveal a continuum. Observers recognize a system that operates across space, time, and perception, linking ruins, landscapes, and skies in a coherent framework. The builder's understanding of cycles, forces, and patterns is encoded in a way that can still be accessed, interpreted, and appreciated today. Ultimately, the final translation illuminates a philosophy of awareness. The symbols communicate principles of attention, observation, and harmony. They guide the viewer to see connections between the human experience, natural forces, and universal patterns. The message is subtle, patient, and profound, offering insight to those who seek it with openness and curiosity. The carvings and celestial patterns converge to a single realization. The ancient builders, whatever their origin, were inviting observers into a relationship with knowledge itself. They encoded the principles of mathematics, astronomy, energy, and perception in a way that survives centuries, calling for engagement, understanding, and respect. The final translation leaves observers with a sense of awe and reflection. The symbols are not merely relics of the past or phenomena of the present. They are active, persistent, and enduring guides, reminding humanity that understanding is layered, accessible, and universal. The message is clear. The universe is a system of relationships, patterns, and knowledge, waiting for those willing to see, trace, and connect. The journey concludes not with answers alone, but with invitation. Observers are encouraged to continue the exploration, to follow the patterns, to engage with the symbols, and to recognize the continuity between ancient wisdom and modern perception. The final translation is both an ending and a beginning, a bridge from stone and sky to insight, understanding, and wonder.